Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Today it is about time zones, and that is because 50% of my patrons, they wrote and asked me, could you please put something on regarding time zone? And of course, it is a very interesting subject. Right now, I have an application right here. It's a SpringBoot application, and then I have a Postgres database right here. And then we have different kinds of clients. We have a JavaFX client, we have a web UI client, we have a third-party service right here that just calls via REST or REST API. And of course, the clients should never think about it. They don't have to think about time zones. They might, they have to give which zone they are in themselves. That's okay. They will just provide that to the backend. But of course, it is it is the backend's problem. It is a headache of the backend to handle these times in different time zones in the correct way. And time zones are very, very difficult because it is something that is decided politically. Sometimes countries are changing time zones just because they want to be the first one to celebrate New Year's Eve when the year is year 2000, for instance. Then some countries actually changed their time zone, and sometimes it is very with very short time before they actually change their own time zone or their own offset also. So time zones are very, very difficult, but it does not need to be difficult when we are coding backends, because what we do as a Spring Boot developer, we take the time zone from the client. So whenever we need some data that is time zone specific, then what we do is that we take the zone ID, and then we use the new Java time framework, or new, it has been there since Java 8. Then there is something called a zoned date and time, and we can use that, and then we can store that data into the Postgres database, and we can use a field named timestamp with time zone, or we can also use a field just named time zone. The problem comes when if we have multiple application that goes to the same database, and that's one of the reasons why we should never have that. So let us say that I am storing all my time zones in my Postgres database without a time zone. So I know that it's always in Danish times, and it's always in Copenhagen time, and that's that is a format I'm storing it in. And then suddenly we have another application. It doesn't need to be Spring Boot. It could be just something totally different, and it goes and actually manipulates or uses the data, and there's no time zone in the data. And maybe this is an application located in the US or something like that. So the time zone means a lot. And then we would actually have wrong times. And in the situation I'm going to show you in a minute is then we are sending messages to a spaceship, and we want to schedule these messages to be sent out in the future at some point. And so that's actually first of all, only have one application connected to the database. There must be one owner of the data. It can get very messy if you have multiple application to the same database. So let us look at some code. I have created this application right here by pressing File, New Projects, and then I chose Spring Initializer. I chose Maven. There's a lot of people using Maven, so I've also started using it a bit more than I was in the old days. Spring Web right here, and then I added Postgres SQL Server right there, and then I also added JPA, Spring Data JPA, because we want to persist some data. Then I pressed next, finish, ended up with this project right here. Then I created a Docker Compose file, and this is taken from the documentation on Postgres on Docker Hub, how to create a good Docker Compose file. We have my Postgres right here. Then we have an administrating tool right here, which is also started up. That means that I can go to port 8080, and then I can actually administrate the Postgres server that is up and running right there. Then I'm mapping out the port, so this is the port that I need to connect to from my Spring Boot backend, and I've set a password, which is just Mike right now. And since I'm using 8080 right here, that means that I need to change my application port, because the default port is also 8080 there. So I've changed it to 8090 instead. And then I've set all of these all of this Postgres specific information right here that we want to connect to the database. We're using the Postgres driver. This is the location, Mike's DB right there. And I've added the action serialization indent output to true, so it looks a bit better when we are getting JSON returned. Then I've created an entity right here. This is my entity. I've added the Lombok data annotation. Then I've added with entity right here. That's how we can see that this is a JPA entity. I've added no args constructor and all args constructor, and then I've said that we have an ID which is an integer, and it would be generated by Postgres. Then we have a message. This is a string message, and then we have our date. We have a zoned datetime right here, and this is when we want the message to be sent to our spaceship. So this is where the focus is tonight. I've added a column definition right here. If I don't set the column definition, then I will get it without a time zone in Postgres. Then I will just then I will actually just have a timestamp like that. If I add column definition timestamp TS, then I also have the zone on, and that means that then I can see the timestamps in UTC instead of the local time zone that I'm in right now, which is Europe and Copenhagen. So that was the entity. Then I've created a repository which doesn't do much except for it's just a handle, so I can actually store data and get data back. Then I'm initializing my database every time I start up. I've added something. Look here, right here. I've added the create drop, and I've added generate DDL. These two lines I will actually make sure that all the tables are deleted whenever I stop my application, and they are created when I start up my application. So this is very good for development. So that means that now my table will be created automatically, and then I delete all data. I didn't have to do that, but I just do that to make sure. And then I add all of these. Then I add all of these spaceship messages right here. And as you can see right now, I give an ID of null because that will be filled out by Postgres. Then I give a message, test123, and then a zone ID, US, Arizona, zone ID of Turkey, zone ID of Europe, Copenhagen. So I populated with 3 messages. Of course, these zones here, how can we get those? How should we get those? I've created a unit test that actually creates these for me. That means that this unit test right here, give me zones, it prints out all the zones. And I can get them with the zone ID, get available zone IDs like that. Let us run it, and let us see what result we get. And here we got a lot of time zones. ETC, CET, Australian, Tasmania, Libya, Europe, Isle of Man, etc. So that's a lot of Africa, Tunis. And that is where I picked, that is from this list that I picked my time zones. So that was a repository. Then I also created an API. I made it possible for other people to post a message right here. We can post a message with this API right here. So if I post to API message, and then I post a message spaceship message API, this is another representation of the same data. I don't like to expose my my data model when I have a REST API, so I actually like to have both an API version, which is almost contains the same data, but it is different. It does not have the ID, for instance. And it also has some helper methods that can convert an API version to the entity version and the entity version to the API version. So this is the post right here. And what the post does, it tries to save into the repository a message, as an API message that is being converted into an entity. And how is it converted into an entity? We are taking the local, we are creating a local date time from the date time that we actually get. And then we are using this date time formatter right here. So that means that I'm using this, so that means that we actually are getting the date time as a string from the from the third party service in this situation right here. And it has this format, year, month, day, and hour and minute. A cool thing right now with IntelliJ is actually if I write something wrong, like 2Ds instead, look, now I get a warning and then it actually says uppercase DD means day of year. Pattern is used properly. The lowercase dd of day of month was intended, and yes, that is exactly true. So yes, thank you very much for that. That is good with the help. So that is this method right here. Then we get the local date time right there, and then we want the zone date time right here. and I get that from this method right here, ZonedDateTime of LDT, and then the zone ID, which is from the string right here. So that is converted from a string. So many exceptions can actually be thrown right here. We can get a zone rule exception. We can also get a datetime parse exception if the format is not withheld. So when we receive a spaceship message API, then we can convert that to our data entity. And then when we have converted to an entity, then we are saving it inside in the repository. That means we're saving it in the database. If we have any errors, we could also, right now we're just returning a string like time zone not recognized, then get a localized message. But if we get a zone rule exception, if we get a datetime parse exception, a bit the same. We return datetime parse error. Of course, when we do it like this, then we just then we return HTTP status code 200. If we want to make it a bit nicer, we could have a response body right here, and then we could return another error. We could use one of the error codes instead for our HTTP API. But let us just stick with this right now. Let us focus on the time zones and the timestamps. So that is one method right here. We can post messages to our API. We can also get messages. So that means we can actually get all the messages. But when we are getting messages, then we need to apply a request parameter. That means that that's a part after the question mark in our URL. Then we need to give the time zone, because we cannot guess which time zone we are in. The time zone, if it's let's say that it was a web UI, maybe it was a JavaScript client, then it can get the time zone from the system, and then it can actually pass that along with the HTTP requests. And this is the get mapping, and this is exactly where we would actually use the request parameter. That is where we want to have some data for a certain time zone. It is specific for this time zone only. So then I convert it right here. I should also have wrapped this in try catch and then return a nice message if the time zone is not recognized. But I did not do that right now. So, and then we have the spaceship message repository right here. We are finding all of them. Then for each of them, for each entity, then we are converting it into a spaceship message API bean instead. And then we're returning the list like that. Okay, so let's try the API now. The application, have I started it? No, I haven't. Let us start it up. Starts up, and then it should initialize. Yes, look here, then we got initialized with 3 pieces of data. That means that I can actually go to my browser right there, and then I can go, this is my, this is the adminer, this is the adminer image. So if you haven't used that, try that. It also works with a lot of other databases than Postgres, MySQL, etc. I think it's awesome. And right now we can actually see, because I just selected the rows, we can see here are 3 rows. And we can see on the timestamp that is right now, but because it's UTC, then it has subtracted 2 hours, because right now I'm in Copenhagen, that's +2, so that means that when it saves the data, then it just subtracts 2 hours. So we have all the data right here, and everybody can actually understand that this data is now UTC because it has +00. It is a time zone timestamp, which I would recommend to use. I like the data to be specific, so we know, even though another application should not put its nose into our data directly. It should always go through the application that owns the data. Then it is good because it will happen at some point probably. Then it's good that the data is as specific as possible. Then we have the messages: test 1, 2, 3, test 4, 5, 6, test 7, 8, 9. Really cool. So let us use the API. So I've prepared some curl scripts right here. One is a post script right here. I'm writing hi. We can write hi from demo. One like this. This is the date time. The date time. Yeah, I just type something right here. This is in September the 2nd, and then 14:23. And the time zone I have selected, that should be Europe and Copenhagen. So that's my time zone. Then I need to add here in the header that is the content type is application JSON, and that is so SpringBoot will actually recognize it as JSON and then convert it to the spaceship message API class, or an instance of the class bean. So then we have the local host right here, and that is 8090 and an API message. Let us run the scripts. Run. The message has been saved right here. There's a lot of other stuff in my console output. Let me just clear it. And I'll just save 2 messages. Hi from demo 1 and 2. The message was saved. Let us say that I made a mistake in my format. Let's say that I wrote an extra number right there. Then I run the program again. I run the curl again. Right now it says date time pass error text blah 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 could not be passed at index 0. Index 0, that is the first argument, that is the year. So that is also okay. That then that directs us and shows us that there's actually something wrong right there. I get a 200 returned. Of course, the HTTP status code should have been something else. Let us say that I make a mistake in my time zone. I did not know that I had to add Europe in front, for instance. Let us press play and see how we experience this. Time zone not recognized, unknown time zone ID, Copenhagen. We could also have returned all the possible outcomes. That would actually been good, I think. So I think if I should have made this a bit more user friendly, this API, then I would have returned these are the possible values, and then people could actually see, oh, I need to add Europe in front of this. So let us just write 3 and then let us see that actually works. So now the message was saved. Then we have a get message right here. I have the time zone Copenhagen, Europe Copenhagen. Let's try to press play. And then we can actually see this is our messages right here. We have the same. So we have 1423 just as because we are using, that was the time zone that we saved it in. And this was the time zone now. I can almost see that was the third message created in our SpringBoot application automatically when it starts up. Then let us try to change this to Turkey instead. Turkey, like this. Run again. And there's an error there. It should not have been. Whoops, I made a small mistake, so I had to go fix it actually. So that is why the video is jumping a little bit, because I had to clip together the pieces right here. My problem was that when I converted the entity to the API version of the message, then I had a piece here with zone same instant. I actually chose with zone same local, and that actually gave me the same time at all time. So that was my problem. That was what I did wrong. So what it does now, it actually converts the time zone. So let us try to look at it. I have my get message right here. Australia, Perth. Let us press play, see what dates we now get. We can see this is Australia, Perth, and then we get at 11 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock in the morning. If I then use Copenhagen, I've created this extra script right here, curl Copenhagen. Then we can see that it's 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock. So now the time zone request parameter works. That is awesome. That is awesome, because now we actually have a backend that can handle different time zones. When we are storing data, we will just mention which dates, which time zone do we want to store this time in, and when we are getting the data out again, we just say, I am in this time zone. Can you please convert the time for me? That means that the clients are not thinking about the time zones. They're just saying which time zone they're in, of course, and then the backend is converting to the time to the right time zone, of course. So that the client should not feel this. It should only be the backend. Let us just try to store some. Let us try to store some values with Australia, Perth right here. Say hi from demo 4. Let us call this 4. The message was saved, and then I have my other message right here. Hi from demo, and then 5. That's European Copenhagen. And we run again. It should be this. It is the same time, but in different time zones. So let us see how it actually looks in the database. Let us go look in the browser. Select, and here's the data. We can see there's that definitely a difference in the times because of the time zones. Yeah. So this is it's stored in UTC, and then with plus 0000, or with plus 00. That there's no offset. There's no yeah. So it is UTC. I hope that answered your question. If not, then comment again. chat. Thank you very much. It was an interesting topic, actually. Of course, I will post the code as usual to my GitHub repository, and then you can just check what you want from there. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.